We're going to get started with RClone. So specifically, we're going to do a demo that helps you move between Koa and Google Drive. So hopefully this is helpful for that specific use case. The first thing I'll do, I'll share my screen. So in the workshop prep, there's instructions on how to install RClone. It's only for Windows. I have a Windows machine. So if you have a Mac, they do documentation there, but I'm just going to quickly go over how to install it on your Windows machine, and then we'll move on to the configuration. So the first thing you want to do when you're installing RClone is navigate to the site, and you will pick the binary that suits your operating system. So you see they have Windows, Mac, Linux. So you're just going to download that file. Has everyone been able to install and download that? Okay, cool. So I can move pretty quickly. From that download, you're going to get the RClone in your downloads here. And what you want to do is in your C drive, this is how I set it up because we're going to just create a path variable so we can use it on the command line. You're going to just create a new RClone folder here. And when you download the binary, you just want to extract everything to the file you just created. So assuming you have the file and you have your new RClone folder, you're going to go to Browse. It's where you want to extract, and just navigate in your C drive to that RClone folder that you have just created, and select that folder. I'm not going to do it because it's already there for me, but once you select that and hit select folder, everything will be extracted there. So we can go and look at that. And you just want to make sure that the RClone executable is there. And we're going to go ahead and update the path. You might not have the file extensions like I don't, but you can see under type, it says application. So we have what we need to continue. Okay. And this is all in the documentation. All right, so assuming we've had the extracted files, we just want to add the RClone command to our path now so we can use it in our command line. There's a command line interface. So we're going to navigate to advanced system properties. I just go this way. I type advanced system settings. Oops, I have to log in, sorry. All right. So in my systems properties, and again, this is for Windows 10, it might be a bit different if you have another Windows systems like 11 or something like that. But you go to your environment variables, and you're going to select the path here, and we're just going to edit the path to add RClone. So we're just going to go to edit. I already have it here, but pretend that I don't. Go to new, and then browse. And again, we're going to navigate to that RClone file that we just created and extracted everything to. So we're going back to the C drive. Move this up. We're going back to the C drive here. And then we're just going to select RClone. And then you'll hit OK for all of the windows. Again, I already did that, so I'm not going to install it again. But once you have that, RClone should be installed on your computer. And what you want to do now is just to test that the command is working, is you can open the command line interface of your choice. I'm using PowerShell, but you can use whatever you have. And just, I'll do RClone version, which should tell me the version of RClone and some information about my system. So hopefully that pops up, and now we're ready for the next section. So how's everyone doing? Successful, not successful? Okay, great. So we'll move on to RClone config. And so the reason we installed this locally is once we get to the authentication with Google Drive, it's going to ask us to input a command into our local system. So we just needed to do that step preliminarily so you can continue with the configuration. Okay, so now we're on part 11, back in the workshop. And so RClone is a utility to help you sync directories between cloud storage options. And it also helps you move files between them as well. So we're going to be using RClone in Koa, and we're going to move some files between our Google Drive for this demo. So the first thing we're going to do is navigate to the Koa shell. So you might be prompted, if you're not already logged in, to for your dual authentication when you're logging into Koa. So you can go ahead and do that. And once everyone has access this dashboard, just let me know. And I'll put this link in the chat just so it's a little easier.
Oh, I put it in the chat.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks. Good? Okay, great. So just navigate to clusters and Koa access shell. And what we're going to do is configure our RClone so it can work with our Google Drive account. So you'll be prompted again at some point to log into your Google Drive, your personal Google Drive, but that'll come a bit later. So the first command we put in is RClone config. And this is like a wizard. It's going to take us step by step through the configuration process. And the first thing it's going to ask us is if we want a new remote. If you had done this before, you might see another remote in there, but we're going to create a new one. So we're going to hit N for new remote and hit enter. And we're just going to name it. This can be any name that's significant to you. In the documentation, we just call it RClone-G drive. So that's the name I'm going to use. But you can really name it anything you'd like. So once you've named it, you can see all of the cloud storage providers and vendors that RClone works with. Today, we're going to use Google Drive, which is 18, not to be confused with Google Cloud Storage. So we're just going to go in and put in 18 here. But obviously, if you're working with something else, you could select a different provider. Everyone okay so far? It's a pretty quick process. Okay. For client ID, we're just going to leave that blank. And client secret, we're also going to leave that blank, so you can just hit enter. Okay, and so now we're in the scope, which is, how much access do we want RClone to have? For this, we're going to use full access. So we're going to put in 1, which means, it can read and write to our Google Drive and transfer things as well. So we're just going to hit 1. And we're also going to leave this service account portion blank as well. The next question is edit advanced configuration. We're not going to do that. So we're also going to click no. Okay, so this is the reason why we installed RClone locally. It's asking if you are using a remote machine. So since we're in Koa, we are using a remote machine. If you were doing this from your local computer, you could hit yes, and it would happen automatically. But since we're in the shell, we'll hit no. And so now we have this command that we need to copy onto our local machine. And what that's going to do is authenticate RClone so that it could access our Google Drive. So go ahead and copy this code right here, and I'm going to put it into my PowerShell. All right, so it happened pretty fast, but once I put that command into PowerShell, you can see that in my browser, it's asking me to log in to my Google Drive and give RClone access. So my account's already here. You might have to log in if you're not already logged in on your browser. And now it's asking, do you want to give RClone access? And we do. So we're going to hit allow. And then it was successful, so we can actually close out of this. And when we go back to the shell, when we go back to our command line, we have this very long key here that we're just going to copy and put into the Koa shell. So that's our configuration token. Oops. It's okay. It's okay. So once you paste that, paste in the config token, just hit enter. Well, actually, let me check. How are people doing with that portion of it? Okay. Okay. And you do not want to configure this as a shared drive. Then the last thing it asks you is if you want to keep the drive. So yes, we do. And that's the end of the configuration. So at this point in the shell, you can hit quit or hit Q, and we're done. So actually, before you hit Q, or you can still hit it, but you can see now under name and type, we do have that RClone G drive in our current remotes because we've just set that up. How's it working? Okay. No. So now we can move on to the G drive portion. I'm just gonna go to the next point. Right, so RClone must be configured on the server before you can transfer data. So we just finished the configuration. So we'll transfer some data. Okay. So we're gonna go back into the Koa shell, and we're going to see now that when we put in this command, RClone LSF, and then this is just the name of our remote. So this is the name I used. If you use a different name, just put the name you input here. But we're gonna look now, we should be able to see the files that we have in our Google Drive. Okay, so now you can see basically these are all the files in my Google Drive, and I can actually show you, it's reflecting what is in my personal Google Drive. So that worked. So the next thing that we want to do is we're just going to use the make directory command and create a folder now in our remote called RClone files. And this is just to test that we can move things back and forth.
You're gonna want the RClone command before that.
Oh, thank you. All right, so I've just made this directory RClone test, and we can see it here. And we're going to change directories into that directory that I just made. Okay. So now the next thing we can do is navigate, oops, I named it something else. Okay. We can go into our Google Drive now. So hopefully you're logged in there. But now it's saying to go over into your Google Drive and create a test folder. So I'm just going to create a new file. New folder. I'm just adding the two because I already have an RClone test file. Okay. Okay, and then in our new file, in our Google Drive, in our RClone test folder, we're just going to create a new test file. Okay, so now we're going to go back into the shell and we're going to copy the contents from the Google Drive to Koa. So we can copy and paste this command, or you can type it in back into the shell. And I'm just going to change it because I changed the name of my file on my Google Drive. So I'm just going to update that. And what this command is saying is, is asking RClone to copy the contents from the source. So this portion here is our Google Drive into the destination, which is our Koa clone test directory that we created. And the dot just signifies that we want the destination to be our current directory that we're in. So hit enter. Oh, whoops.
Did you call it _2 instead of 1?
Yes. All right, thank you. So that worked. Okay, so let's just check to see what we have in the folder. So there we go. We see that test file that we made in the Google Drive is now in Koa. And that's one way you can transfer data. And so then the next exercise is we're going to create a file in Koa and transfer it to G Drive. All right, so we're just going to copy the file that we created and name it something else. So again, this source destination pattern. So I have the test file here, and I'm just going to create another test file and name it test file 2. Oops.
I think that was just because you got a $sign at the beginning of the last command.
Okay. Don't copy the $sign. There we go. Okay, so I copied the file. So if I ls again, we should be able to see 2 files. Great. And so then the next thing we want to do is just move it to G drive. So we're going to do another RClone copy. So I'm going to copy this command and not put in the shell. Oops. Oh yeah, here. Well, also. Oh yeah, good call. Thank you. All right. Okay, so I've just copied the command was asking RClone to copy the test file that we made and now put that into the Google Drive, which is the destination. So now when we go back, oops, into Google Drive, we should see that test file. I'm just creating another file so it's clear in the transfer. You don't have to do this. All right, so now we see our, oh, there's my first test file, and then here's the second test file. And that is it. They have other instructions here for if you need to copy, obviously, more than one file. If you want to, if you have like larger files to copy and things like that, you can use these other commands here for a larger file transfer. Obviously, we just transferred one file back and forth. But you could use that as well. So I'll stop for questions. If not, we can move on to the assessment portion.
How long does it usually take to transfer a large file, let's say, 5 GB?
That, let me ask Sean. Sean, the question was, how long in RClone does it take to transfer larger files? What was your example size?
5 GB. Right.
Oh, like 5 gigabytes?
It's so yeah, it's gonna depend on like what systems you're moving the data to and from. Really, so if you're moving data between two HPC systems, it should be relatively fast. People have used RClone. So folks at Clemson use this to move like 100 terabytes of data from Clemson, like over to someplace in California, and they basically were able to saturate the network enough that they almost shut down the commercial endpoint over there. And so they moved it. Actually, I think they were moving it into Google, honestly, when it was still unlimited. So Google started throttling RClone a little bit after that. So you can move data really fast with RClone. Just depends on the network and the endpoints there. So it should hopefully move data close to some of the speeds you can get with Globus, although it's not going to be quite as robust as Globus would be. So if where you're moving data from has Globus support, then I would recommend using that over RClone.
Cool, thanks.
So for Sean, so I have like over 400 gigabytes data sets on the JStream 2, and I wish to move that to the AWS Elastic file system there. So there is
You want to move it from Jetstream to which system?
AWS.
AW Amazon?
Yeah, Amazon, and they have like EFS system, just Elastic file system.
Yeah.
So because on the global and also on that, I didn't see the option for JStream 2 or
I would say RClone is probably the option you want to use since it has AWS support.
yeah, but it seems like only S3 storage S3 here. Yeah, I saw Amazon there, but it's only they're like Elastic file system plans.
I'm pretty sure people use RClone to move it to AWS for EC2.
Okay.
Let's see. Isn't well actually don't you have to use the S3 storage on EC2?
Sorry. Okay. Do I have to repeat it again? I didn't hear you.
Oh, can you repeat that, Sean? We didn't hear what you just said.
So isn't the AWS storage, don't you where you stage data in, isn't it S3 that you mount on the EC2 instances?
Actually, I mean, the S3 is for long-term storage. The reason we use the EFS is because we just want to do a short term, and also I think that's can be also mounted on like multiple instances.
Let's see. Yeah, I don't know about EFS. I'm just looking this up. Some of the comments are that it doesn't have the same thing as a similar API as other services do.
So just for sure, like the outcome just definitely work for like from JStream to the AWS, right?
Sorry, can you repeat that? So it's unfortunately that room has got like a really bad echo with whatever that unit in the back of the room has.
Oh, just the RClone definitely work for the JStream 2 and transfer data from JStream 2 to the AWS EC2, right?
So for the EFS storage for AWS, it doesn't sound like RClone will move data with that for that. I think you need to probably use the EFS utilities from Amazon maybe to have to move some of that data.
Okay, well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Did anyone else have any other questions?
Quick question, Sean. If you wanted to, like, if you just want to get under your drive capacity now with the quota and all that that's being set, or the capacity limits that are being set, what's the best way if you want to just get it onto, like, get a ton of files onto like your local hard drive?
So I guess RClone you can install on your laptop for your local hard drive to pull data down. Would probably be pretty simple. Or if you have the sync client, you could sync it down and then copy it over and delete it as well, would be a different way.
Okay.
But RClone would be probably pretty fast to download it, and then you're gonna have to download it somewhere and then delete it out of Google Drive once you're confident you've got the data that you want.
Is there like a GUI or something where where you could like select all and drag, kind of like how like with Globus, or do you have to like individually type every file name type of thing? Like
There is an RClone GUI that it's a web server that you have to run on your own machine. You should agree.
because like if you have a ton of files in there, I can imagine like it almost becomes impossible, right? I mean, not impossible, but you'd have to sit there and like move, I guess, files into folders and then just move an entire directory. But you know, you have that main drive that might have a bunch of individual files. Is it better to just move those into?
You probably, I think you could use like star and regex type selections in RClone.
Uh-huh.
If you're wanting to like, I believe, yeah, filtering using filters with RClone here, I think you can do star like in your directory, grab every file. Or you can do things like I only like star dot some file extension to only grab files that are say like netcdf files, like if it was a star.nc or something like that, that would try and do that. So you can use these the regex like glob style filtering things.
Right.
So patterns, and as Candace showed, you can actually pull like just an entire folder. So if you have a folder of files, you just put the folder name and download the whole folder.
So it'll automatically do it if you just give it the folder name and the command.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking because I have a whole bunch of like loose files, like not in folders. And I was thinking maybe the best thing to do is just move that all into a folder and then I don't know, name it miscellaneous or something, and then just move that whole folder onto my local drive.
Yeah, you might look at the filtering section here. I'll just throw this the rclone.org/filtering to get a better idea of some of the different options that you might have for selecting what stuff you want to transfer if you're depending on how your stuff is organized. So I'll show that in the chat.
How much storage space do we have on our home directory in Koa again?
So I think the new Koa is like 25 gigs of storage in home. What we did is for labs. So if your PI, all I got to do is request. We have half a terabyte of storage that a lab can request. So PI can just request that and we'll grant that. So instead of large home directories now, what we're doing is this like group storage type thing for labs, so they can get half a terabyte of storage for a PI's lab.
That everybody could access those files.
Everybody in the lab, yeah. So the PI can request that gets set up, and then who add their lab members to that storage.
Can our advisor like set permissions as to what folders can be viewed by everybody and not then, or?
It's regular POSIX type stuff. So but for the most part, I would think that if you add people to that storage space, then yeah, you regulate that how you kind of want, but it's regular POSIX sort of permissions. So I think people are by default, when you add them to that storage, it's a group membership.
Got it. Okay. All right, cool. Thanks.
Is there another question? Nope. Okay, I think we can go with the assessment then, because we're at about that time.
All right, what's one more question? I'm not sure if you know, but what's the limit now, the limit on the Google Drive capacity that they're gonna instill?
So for students, it's 25 gigabytes of storage for student like personal UH accounts, and then for faculty, it's 100 gigs. And then a shared drive is 25 gigs on the shared drive.
And then what's a normal Gmail account typically?
Oh, what?
Normal Gmail account that's not associated with edu.
Is it 5 or 7?
Oh wow.
So it's not very much for like a normal one.
Right. It feels like even 25 isn't much when you go from limitless.
Yeah, this has impacted academia pretty hard since Google removed unlimited from everybody. So
It's every university. It's not just us for some reason.
yep, they took it away from they had given it to all of the academic institutions that had basically adopted Google for Education. So everyone had unlimited. Stanford and other folks, they had many, many, many petabytes of data in Google Drive. So
Okay.
so yeah, so we're not unique. We're actually later in like migrating out than some other institutions have been. So
Thanks.